nurturing film and immersive art for social good. I'm Tonya Hall, and joining me is Tiffany Kieran, Director of EarthXR Programming and Partnerships for EarthX Film. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course. So, what does EarthX Film do?
So EarthX Film is sort of the creative branch of EarthX. So EarthX is the world's largest environmental experience. We've been based in Dallas, Texas, grew out of Earth Day, Dallas and Earth Day, Texas, and kept growing and growing and started getting more and more global. And a few years ago, about 4 years ago, the EarthX Film started. And with Michael Caine, who's the president and CEO and one of the co-founders with Tremulous Crow. And basically, Michael had a strong background in film and wanted to bring that element to this huge environmental experience. And so it's really just kind of grown and grown for years. And EarthXR became like the immersive element of that. A few years ago, I had been working on Oculus VR for Good, and Michael kind of reached out wanting to have more VR and immersive elements. And so we kind of built EarthXR under the film umbrella. And we also do a lot of work with education and film competitions and all kinds of creative elements to highlight work around endangered species and nature and sustainability and, inspiring people to take care of the planet.
So, you've kind of touched on some of this at a high level, but what are some examples of the social good you've accomplished using film and immersive art?
I can say from our from our festival, some of the things I super love is a few years ago we had a piece called Dance with Flamingos. It was an AR project that also had an element where you could, step in front of a Connect and like raise your arms, and the flamingo raises its arms, and you dance, and the flamingo dances, and people really love that experience. And they also could adopt flamingos. So through that experience, we had 17 flamingos adopted. So I love things like that. With a lot of our work, our filmmakers are very much impact-based environmentalists as well as filmmakers. And so they're often working with organizations. I'm thinking of Habitat XR that did a predicament of pangolins, and they did Gorilla Palooza. With the Ellen Fund, they've worked a lot with Conservation International and World Wildlife Fund. They've done record-breaking fundraisers in virtual reality. And filmmakers like Underwater Earth and Ghost Fleet VR that we worked with in 2019, we also had like Tongan ambassadors that came and viewed the Underwater Earth project at our festival. We had the Chinese consulate came through, former president of Mexico, Zedillo, came through. We have government and UN organizations coming through and viewing the work. And we really try to make sure that these projects that are about stopping whale poaching or stopping illegal fishing and over traffic, human trafficking tied to illegal fishing and things like that, that we get it not just in front of the public, but also in front of policymakers and people that can really change things on a government level. We went with those filmmakers also to the United Nations and to the Peace Boat and, survivors of the human trafficking and Ghost Fleet were speaking to the United Nations, and Guardians of the Kingdom was showing in front of these critical policymakers. So part of what we do is just trying to get the general public to fall in love with nature again. We have a project called Wild Immersion, endorsed by Jane Goodall, that we've been working with in partnership for a couple of years now. And what we love about that is that just is Jane Goodall, and it's nature, and it's stunning, and it's fun, and it's entertaining, and we can use content like that to just engage audiences and help them fall in love with nature again, especially to kind of go into the wilds of like places that they could normally never go underwater, swimming with dolphins and whales, and going into Africa and the Amazon and Asia, a lot, especially in COVID right now when people can't travel. So there's that element of going just to the general public to get them to really care about nature. And then we have these other elements where a lot of the content drives donations to take care of like rescued baby elephants that, which we did the Elephant Keeper in 2019 with Conservation International. And that encourages people to actually like take action and donate. And then, like I said, like that high level kind of like influencing policymakers. So it's a broad spectrum, and we're trying to engage everybody where they are, because everybody's got like, different ways that they can help and support. And we try to create like a broad spectrum of ways that people can engage through the work that we program.
That's a lot of storytelling. But so, what is some of the technology behind the immersive art that you utilize?
So we try to keep it broad. The reason it's EarthXR is that we really try to engage beyond just VR. So we definitely have virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed realities, immersive arts, and we've had projections and all kinds of different creative work like that. We've had a lot of filmmakers that have used AI in their VR. So the artificial intelligence is also an aspect of that, and we're really fascinated just in general with emerging technology, especially in this space, not just for the way that content is produced and created, but also in the way that emerging technologies are being used in environmental work, and the way that like AR, VR projects can showcase the use of like AI to, there was a piece called Los Guardianes that we programmed in 2019, and they were using AI to help track endangered species, and kind of getting rid of these super like manual and very kind of time consuming ways of doing that endangered species work, and helping the Costa Rican rainforests. So it's a blend of these technologies that are used in the production, and also showcasing how emerging technologies are used in the actual environmental work.
So, once you've established a goal or mission, if you will, what's the process you follow to achieve it? Where does the creative come from? Where do the technologists who support the effort come from?
Ooh, that's it's a big process all year long. I think, when we get into like planning the festival, and which is a very different process now. It used to be very focused on like what, everything that we would do year round would focus towards April. Our big festivals were generally in Dallas in April, and in 2019 we had over 177,000 people. National Geographic was our major partner for 2020, and we were expecting over 200,000. And then we pivoted to doing everything virtually and online, and doing EarthX TV. But all year long, we are often engaging with other festivals. We're often working with other partners and programmers. I mentioned Michael Caine before, our president. He will One of the things I love so much about the festival is he always says we are co-competitors, not competitors. We collaborate incredibly well with other festivals. So, recently we worked with Guanajuato International Film Festival. We've had a wonderful partnership with them. We have a whole Latin America element to the festival and everything, and we've worked with Peace Boat. Our friend Jeremy McCain from Ridge to Reef does the ultramarine summits with Richard Branson. He brought us into Virtual Burning Man. We did panels with CanXR. We usually go to Sundance and do showcases and impact houses. I have a panel for South by Southwest coming up in March. So we're always doing those things year round, but it's always to kind of push the energy back to the April event. And it's interesting because I keep thinking, when you said goals, I've been getting a lot of questions throughout COVID, about VR and what the goals of this are. And one thing that I really loved, before COVID, is we were able to provide for audiences free and open to the public experiences. So that means a lot to us. Not everybody can get a headset. These technologies are often very inaccessible to a lot of people. And even if it's smartphones and computers, like, people don't really kind of take into account how inaccessible that is to some people as well. And so we were, very excited to always, create experiences where we had our big event in April, but we also had like monthly programming and programming with partners all the time, where we were really trying to make this available to larger audiences. And that's another thing that we've done in COVID. We've still tried to make sure that we could make this accessible to people. So when we did Wild Immersion, endorsed by Jane Goodall, that content was placed up on the web so that people could view it online. They can access that through their phones and tablets. And so, the goal is really to get this to as many people as possible. We want, to use these creative endeavors to really help people find how they can take care of the environment, how they can, be as close to nature as possible, and to really get people reconnected, and to provide as many ways as possible for people to kind of like know what to do so that they can take good care of the planet.
What do you see for immersive art and extended reality in the coming year? How is it going to continue to evolve and grow?
I think contactless is is still a challenge right now for anything that people are doing physically in person. It's interesting, how much like you hear about like VR headsets selling out and like people not being able to get a hold of them because I think it's driven a lot of traffic to people, using the time in COVID to try to experience something. I was taking roller coaster rides the other day in VR because I can't in person. So I do think that's, wonderful that people are at least finding, VR as an outlet through all this. I'm really interested in seeing the glasses, that are coming out, and the AR kind of elements. The boom in AR I think is so interesting, and I love a lot of things that are accessible through phones. So for me, it's always going to be like, I think a lot of other festivals that we work with are more interested in, kind of like the geekiest tech and the most interactive thing and the most expensive headsets and stuff. And for us, we're often trying to find a way that it's just accessible to everyone, or as many people as possible. So
Well, and well, I was just going to say, and to elaborate on that, I mean, you mentioned quite a bit this already, but how does the general public find and consume your content?
So we have earthxr.org is our website. And so when we programmed everything for 2020, what we did to adjust for that is there is in all the content that's on there, because we are still trying to figure out like ways that we can showcase this work in person eventually. We want to do as much as we can to honor the filmmakers that made their incredible content available to us. And some of them have pivoted to adaptations of their work, but we have with it on earthxr.org, there's the wild immersion content that people can watch online, and then there's links for a ton of other content that people can find ways to watch it online or in headsets, through different platforms and everything. So we are actually working on kind of developing that more for 2021 to expand on ways on our website for people to keep watching content. And then we have a show, Immerse Yourself in Nature, on EarthX TV, and shows that are like EarthXR Presents that we do with partners, where we kind of walk people through ways to watch content. We have a Danny Washington and Erica Woolsey. We did a program with them called 21st Century Mermaids, and they have a podcast about intersectional environmentalism and immersive work that they're doing. And Erica walks people through this project she did called the Hydrus. She's a National Geographic explorer, and she takes people through. So she shows them how to use the QR code to kind of open it up on their phone, and how to use cardboards and other things like that. So we're trying to use the EarthX TV programming too to be a little bit of education for at-home experiences that way.
Tiffany Kieran, Director of EarthXR Programming and Partnerships for EarthX Film. Doing some great work, Tiffany. I love following you. And certainly this year is going to be a lot of virtual events. And hopefully by 2022, we'll be seeing you out at certainly Sundance and many more places. Tiffany, if somebody wants to connect with you personally, or maybe they just want to find out again more about the work that you guys are doing, how can they do that?
Yes, they can go to earthxr.org. So that's where you can see all the programming that I mentioned earlier, and we'll be working on updates for 2021. And then for me personally, you can just find me on LinkedIn if you look up Tiffany Kieran on LinkedIn.
Thanks again, Tiffany.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this, and I love your program. So really excited to be here.
Well, thank you. And we love having you and love what you're doing. And find more of my interviews right here on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify, or at tonyahall.net. Thanks for watching.